So what is eusociality? Well, for decades and decades and decades, we basically went with the definition provided by this guy here, who's a veteran old bee researcher called Charles Michener. He suggested 3 criteria for the evolution of sociality, of eusociality. One is cooperative care of offspring. Another one is reproductive division of labour. Some individuals breed while other individuals don't. And he suggested overlap of generations. So this can't all be happening within a single generation. Offspring must be staying behind and helping parents. Now, we've already, in our discussion of social groups, met groups which defy this explanation. And one of the key problems with it was pointed out by Crespi and Yanega. In there, we've met them already before as well. They suggested that Michener's definition was too vague, and it's been, on the basis of just Michener's explanation, there's been big debates over whether particular species should or shouldn't be described as eusocial. So, for example, meerkats have all of these things. Do we want to call meerkats eusocial? Especially, all the way down to things like, some of the much more primitive societies than the ones that we consider to be kind of advanced eusocial today, were being debated over whether they're called eusocial. And some authors would and some authors wouldn't. It was generally vague and a bit of a mess. Crespi and Yanega proposed that we replace this definition with a quite hard and fast criterion, which is the presence of reproductive castes, i.e., there exists one caste which permanently loses or reduces its capacity to reproduce. Loss of totipotency. Totipotency is the capacity to do everything, the capacity to kind of breed independently on your own. And so they regard the loss of totipotency in one caste as a criterion for the evolution of sociality. So basically you've got your ants, your bees and your wasps and your termites, and not very much else. Sherman et al. Went a different direction, and this is in the same issue of the same journal, with a debate on these issues. They went a different way. They said that there's a problem with this idea because, firstly, if you define eusociality by one kind of key phenotypic criterion, you're basically papering over lots of different interesting evolutionary outcomes that could result in like kind of similar phenomena but without that one criterion. And also that this is vastly too restrictive. It basically says only invertebrates can be eusocial. So what they suggested was, instead of a phenotypic criterion for eusociality, that we have a continuum of eusociality based upon reproductive skew. We met reproductive skew in the beginning of the last lecture, but reproductive skew is the quantitative degree of asymmetry. It's a continuum from 0 to 1, and it's the degree of asymmetry in breeding. If it's 0, everybody breeds, and if it's 1, only one individual or one pair in the group breeds. And they suggested a eusociality continuum. And there are several problems with this too. Skew is extremely hard to measure unless you have detailed genetics for every individual and every offspring. It also masks genuine discontinuities, actual kind of step changes in evolution, like the appearance of reproductive castes is something which is a really interesting kind of evolutionary phenomenon, and it is a discrete change. You don't want to paper over that with a continuum. And so William Wislow, basically said, guys, stop arguing. Basically, what we want to do is we want to focus on the biology of these organisms rather than having endless debates about the semantics of what to call eusocial. So that's what we're going to do for this lecture. We're going to focus on the biology, not on the terminology. What are the classic eusocial lineages? Well, we've got the Hymenoptera, the ants, the bees, and the wasps, and another lineage of insects, the termites, which have these vast eusocial societies, the queen at the centre and hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of workers. And then you have a bunch of others which live in societies of various degrees of advancement. Notably, you have one vertebrate which is indisputably eusocial, the naked mole rat, we'll come to them in a sec. But then you've also got things like snapping shrimps that have queens and workers. You have clonal aphids which live in queen and slightly less reproductive soldier societies within galls. We've already been over thrips which live in galls that also have soldiers, and their workers also function as medics, which is very interesting. There are eusocial society of beetles. There are other isolated examples dotted around the animal phylogeny, mostly in insects, which we can call eusocial. But the major lineages are the Hymenoptera and the termites.